Good morning, Your Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Leaders' Day for MENA Innovation. This day today is a relaxing day for you high officials. The idea is very much that we hear from world-leading experts for the subject of ICT, innovation and education. And then tomorrow we have our full opening ceremony, of course, where we'll elucidate a little bit more about the content and the detail. For today, this is an opportunity, as I say, to hear from some very good people and to also ask questions of their presentations at the end. And it's a fairly constricted day where we finish for 2:45 for lunch, and there is a ministerial and heads of delegations lunch area up on the first floor, and the main lunch area called the kitchen is available, which everybody can go to. And that'll be the end of today, except to say after lunch we will have the opening of all of these exhibition stands, and I'm delighted that our host, in fact I'm going to ask for a warm round of applause for the patronage and wonderful support of the Minister of Higher Education, Her Excellency Dr. Roya Al-Busaidi. Please give her a warm round of applause. Your Excellency, I know we've been planning this for over a year and a half, so thank you very much for bringing all the stakeholders in Oman together. So without much further ado, we're going to wish a warm welcome from the Undersecretary for the Ministry of Higher Education. That's His Excellency Abdullah Al-Sarmi. Please give the Undersecretary a warm welcome.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أصحاب المعالي المكرمون، أصحاب السعادة، رؤساء الجامعات والأكاديميون، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسر وزارة التعليم العالي ومنظمة عقول عربية الترحيب بكم في هذا اللقاء التحضيري لفعاليات منتدى الابتكار التقني في التعليم لمنطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. فحللتم أهلا ورحبتم سهلا، متمنيا لفعاليات المؤتمر النجاح، وأن تجدوا فيها ما دفعكم للمشاركة والحضور، كما أتمنى للإخوة القادمين من خارج السلطنة طيب الإقامة وأن يستمتعوا بجمال مسقط العامرة. لقد دخل العالم أعتاب الثورة الصناعية الرابعة، والتي بدأت في الظهور في النصف الثاني من القرن الماضي، وأعلن عنها صراحة في منتدى دافوس 2015. ثورة محورها التكنولوجيا الرقمية تتسم بالسرعة، إذ أنها تسير بسرعة متوالية هندسية تضاعفية وليست بمتوالية حسابية خطية، ويتوقع منها أنها ستحدث نقلة غير مسبوقة في مختلف المجالات مثل الذكاء الصناعي والروبوتات والسيارات ذاتية القيادة والطباعة الثلاثية الأبعاد والبيانات العملاقة والحوسبة الكمية وسلاسل الكتل والعملات الافتراضية وإنترنت الأشياء والبايوتكنولوجي وغيرها. ولذلك بات لزاما على أنظمتنا التعليمية تطوير المناهج العلمية بمختلف مراحل التعليم ومنصات المعرفة لمواكبة هذه الثورة سريعة الخطى، بغية خلق جيل مبتكر ومرن ومستشرف لمتطلبات المرحلة القادمة. ومنتدى الابتكار التقني في التعليم بمنطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا، والذي يعقد بجهد مشترك بين وزارة التعليم العالي ومؤسسة عقول عربية، وبالتعاون والشراكة مع مختلف الجهات المعنية بالتعليم والتدريب والجهات الداعمة، والذي تشاركوننا اليوم انطلاق فعالياته، يصب في هذا التوجه، وهو محاولة جادة لتشجيع المؤسسات التعليمية المدرسية والعليا ومؤسسات التعليم التقني والمهني كي تستثمر الجهد والمال في الابتكار في التعليم. فأهداف المنتدى تتمثل في تبادل الخبرات والسياسات والتجارب الناجحة في تعزيز قدرات الشباب وتمكينهم من مهارات ريادة الأعمال والابتكار، وإيجاد حلول للمشكلات التي تواجههم في إنشاء مشاريعهم الصغيرة والمتوسطة بما يحقق تطلعاتهم وبما يتماشى مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة. إن التطور والتنمية لا تقوم قائمتهما بجهود فردية، إنما بجهود مشتركة بين جميع القطاعات الحيوية، ولعل أهمها التعليم المدرسي والعالي. ومن هنا نؤكد على ما سيقدمه المنتدى من تبادل للخبرات والتجارب في مجال تقنية المعلومات والاتصالات والابتكار، فضلاً عن حلقة نقاشية للمبتكرين ورواد الأعمال وغيرها من الفعاليات لإثراء وتمكين ريادة الأعمال والابتكار التقني في التعليم في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. إن الصدى الواسع الذي حظي به منتدى الابتكار التقني في التعليم لمنطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا، والذي عكسه هذا الجمع الطيب من مسؤولين حكوميين رفيعي المستوى وباحثين وأكاديميين وشركات وطلاب معنيين بنظم الاتصالات والمعلومات في قطاع التعليم، لهو خير دليل على الأهمية التي تتبوأها نظم الاتصالات والمعلومات في الأنظمة التعليمية. وحرصكم أيها الإخوة الحضور على تبادل الخبرات والتجارب في هذا المجال، وهذا ما سنشهده خلال الثلاث الأيام القادمة من زمن هذا المنتدى بمشيئة الله تعالى. ختاماً، أتقدم بجزيل الامتنان والشكر للمشاركين في المنتدى، وشكر خاص لضيوفنا من خارج السلطنة الذين نتمنى لهم طيب الإقامة معنا وبيننا. والشكر موصول لمعالي الدكتورة راوية بنت سعود البوسعيدية الموقرة وزيرة التعليم العالي على احتضانها للمنتدى وتوجيهاتها السديدة، ولأعضاء اللجنة التحضيرية للمنتدى على جهودهم لإخراج الحدث على النحو المرجو، متمنيا للجميع الاستفادة وقضاء وقت ممتع مع فعاليات المنتدى. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Before I introduce the conference chair, just for your attention, on the Government Leaders' Day agenda that you have here, I trust you'll be able to see a common theme that runs through this morning and also through the rest of the event. Although the subtitle is ICT Innovation in Education, it's very much about developing innovation in education and higher education such that young people develop skills ready not just for industry but for their own entrepreneurship abilities. And that's very much motivated again by what the Minister has said to me previously about the issue of large, not just in Oman, but many countries in the region, large youth populations and the need to overcome any issues of unemployment, about them creating their own jobs through SMEs and through their own entrepreneurship. And if you see many of these presentations, starting with, after Mario Franco, starting with Fadi Nasser from Omantel, you see student to entrepreneur evolution, empowering tomorrow's digital citizens by Cambridge, and so on. On to Patrick Brazier talking about the unpredictable future. So it's very much a theme, and I look forward to seeing the questions you have to ask our speakers. Now, the easiest thing for me to do is to hand over, before I do, the conference chair, Mario Franco, who you're going to hear from for a few minutes, is the chairman of an organization called Millennium Sustainable Education, works very closely with the intergovernmental organizations, the United Nations. And Mario was also deep within the heart of the Portuguese government 10 years ago, which started the My Magellan project, and his own innovation in policy innovation relating to government revenues resulted in every single Portuguese student having a laptop. That was 10 years ago, and they were all delivered. So excellent work by Mario. And as I said to him a few months ago, well, what does Portugal do now? And he said, well, the market has taken over. And so you have a well-equipped education system. So please give a warm welcome to our conference chair, Mario Franco.
Thank you, John, for your words. I start with a little introduction to the day, and after I will follow the list of speakers. Let me start by some words in Arabic. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashab al-Maghali wa al-Sahada wa al-Sumu al-Saidat al-Sahada. يسعدني ويشرفني أن أكون في مدينة مسقط الأميرة عاصمة سلطنة عمان الجميلة. اسمحوا لي أن أتحول إلى اللغة الإنجليزية. أنا أدرس اللغة العربية منذ 3 سنوات ونصف. مدرسي نجيب متميز لكن الطالب صغير. Thank you. That said, I will use now my presentation, and maybe I walk a little bit. It's easier for me to speak from here than from there. Our topic of today, and my little intervention is aimed to introduce a little bit the topic of this and give a little bit a guidance for some discussions. Of course, none of the speakers will follow that guide, but it's my role to give them anyway. Then, oh, I forget, I have something, yes. Then the idea of this day is to discuss how we can develop innovation and entrepreneurship in education, in higher education, but also in other education stages and levels. And in my point of view, if I look back to the work we have done in Portugal and other countries, I think the culture of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship are linked with education and learning today. Project-based learning, taking the initiative, and all these aspects are linked to an entrepreneurship culture. I start by the culture aspect. Some people, when they think about entrepreneurship, they think how the students can create new companies, how the student can create their own jobs. That's true, but it's not the all true. The whole true is an entrepreneur, and I always consider myself a public entrepreneur. It's not a very used title, because usually when you see a civil servant and you see an entrepreneur in the private sector. But there are people who take initiative, who start projects in public service. And these people are, in my point of view, entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are people who, in their own institution, or their own ministry, or even in their school, or in their foundation, anywhere, they take the initiative and they go beyond the rules in terms of creating new projects and new systems. Then, an entrepreneurship culture, and this is very important, is important in education not only for training young people how to create their own companies, but also to create employers, to create civil servants, to create political leaders and society leaders who can take initiative. Even it's the consolidation of democracy, because only active participants, active citizens, active persons can be engaged in social life, in politics, or in economic or institutional development. Then, I think education first role in entrepreneurship culture is to create people with the courage, with the skill to take initiative, not only to create companies, but to change the society. And this is the first point I want to highlight as introduction. The second point is very important to link the entrepreneurship culture to the curriculum and to the pedagogy of the school. For example, based learning, project-based learning, not only to stay in the classroom, listen to the teacher, but how the student and the teacher can work together, create collaborative work inside of the classroom or even with other classrooms in the country or outside of the country. And going to museums, going to visit the nature, and engage in the society, participate. This kind of learning is, in my point of view, the basis of entrepreneurship. Because when these students go out of the school, they will not wait somebody tell them what to do. They just know they have to think what is the most important thing to do, because they live this in their training, in their education. Then link the curriculum to these practical and theoretical approaches. Give the students this possibility. But let me go a little bit beyond this first line, training, culture, and curricula. And the second point, and we feel it in many countries, there is an infrastructure to develop an ecosystem of entrepreneurship or to create their own projects or their own companies and their own enterprises. Then, one of the points is to create accelerators. A network of accelerators in a country, in the universities, in the higher education, but also starting in other levels of education. And these accelerators, these hubs, is not only the place where the people can sit. No, it's, as you know, I'm sure, is places with services able to support how to make a business plan, how to make a budget, how to make a roadmap for a project or for a company, and what is the legal aspect, what is the financial aspect. Then creating accelerators, in my point of view, is one of the big challenges with the biggest return of investment. To have people specialized, to have the students and the teachers how to develop a project, how to develop a company. And we know today, and the Undersecretary of State mentioned that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And in the fourth industrial revolution, we need people with active capacity, with a capacity to take initiative, but also people who feel they are in an ecosystem where they have support. And this is not only the financing, the funding, but special support. Some people have great ideas. They can create one app, a very good app. But one thing is to create one app. Another thing is to transform the app in a company and a successful company. That you need another skill. And not only one student or two students have these skills. One of the reasons in some places, for example, in the United States, it works well, is not only because they have this university system where students are encouraged to create, but also because there is an ecosystem in some parts of the country where the people are, for example, in Silicon Valley, where they can find an ecosystem supportive of this initiative. Then it's very important to create one of the, let's say, the challenge I didn't touch 10 years ago was to enable this ecosystem when we provide the technology. Fortunately, now we have in Portugal a very good infrastructure, but in many countries, and even in Portugal, we have still lagging behind this great objective to give the capacity of the people to develop. Then that our challenge is how we can create these hubs, these accelerators, these financing tools to support all of this. And with that said, I think now we can go and move with our agenda to discuss how this can be possible to combine the technology providers. We will listen. We will listen also politicians, and we listen people with content, with pedagogy. Our program is very diversified and very, it's a good picture of the different aspects of education and technology and what they can do. Then my aim is trying to push a little bit the discussion in order to have here in this morning, in this great morning, the possibility to ask the participants and the speakers as a community how we can create the conditions that in our countries, in our societies, in our communities, we have engaged students and engaged teachers to create projects, and how we can support the people who is interested to do that. I believe in today's world, this is essential to any country, to have people who take the initiative, and we moving very slowly, but we're moving to, I remember when I was younger, of course, I listened, many people say, I need to go to the university because if I go to the university, I can find a very good job and have a very good income. That was the mindset of 80 or 90% of the students. Today, we cannot offer to all students in the university. We increased the number of students in university. Now almost 100% of the students go to the university. But we cannot offer them a permanent job if they get a degree. That's not possible anymore. But we can offer to the students the possibility for many of them to create their own companies and adding or helping them to improve their participation in the economy of the country. Or if they get a good job, or not a very, very good job, but a job they like it, to improve their own job and their own institution and consolidate our system. And this, in my point of view, is what entrepreneurship in education is about. And I look forward to listen and learn from the participants, from the speakers, what they have to say about that. Thank you for your attention. And I move now with the agenda to the next speaker. Thank you. Then I am honored to call Mr. Fadi Nasser. I think he's in the room, right? Is the general manager and CEO of Omantel. Can I call Mr. Oh, sorry. I was looking through the room. Please.
Advisor to CEO.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. A great applause.
Thank you.
To the first speaker. And I give the floor now to Mr. Fadi. And we need to, which is the first speaker of this session today. And we are very curious about to listen to you. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marco. I appreciate the opportunity. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أصحاب السعادة والمعالي, ضيوفنا الكرام, dear honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, my name is Fadi Nasser. I am the senior advisor to the CEO. I am not the CEO of Omantel, just in case we're not clear on that. I've prepared a few simple stories today to walk you through what's happening in terms of ICT and digital disruption in the education space. I will keep it light. I'll try to make it engaging. But I want to start with a story. Once upon a time, education and learning was confined to the walls of a classroom and to the rows of books in our libraries. Well, that's no longer the case. Right? I'll spare you the cliches of asking for a show of hands of how many of us have kids with iPads that go to school today. I think the answer is known. I'll also spare you the show of hands for how many of us have teenagers at home that only show up when you reset the Wi-Fi password. I've got a few of those. But that's not the story. The anecdote is as such. I have almost military-grade Wi-Fi security devices at home. I want to make sure I control what my kids see when they get online, when they get offline. And I'm failing miserably. This is for a guy that spent over 10 years in the Silicon Valley working on next-generation technologies. My kids are always 2-3 steps ahead of me. You know, I caught one of my kids the other day using the neighbor's Wi-Fi password, and apparently he just exchanged the password for some homemade cookies. That's going to be difficult for me to beat. The real essence of the anecdote is that my other kid had somehow Googled how to use the static IP address of my smart TV device in my living room and programmed that in the laptop so he can get access when the TV is not on. He figured out that the TV is always on the internet. His laptop is locked after 7 o'clock in the evening. He managed to work his way around the system. He got that information, that education from Google in his spare time. I can't beat that. So we're being disrupted. We as parents, we as educators, we as a society, we're being disrupted. Meet the new teacher. The new teacher today is this screen, this digital device, right? Students across all ages, today they can take pictures, they can morph pictures into videos, into blogs, into interactive blogs. They can hashtag them, they can upload them to Google. They communicate to one another at nighttime before they go to sleep with their school monitored application. They discuss things with their teachers in real time from the comfort of their beds. Okay, that's a bit sensitive there. But this is the world they're in. They can create fully interactive, professional videos of the material that they're learning before they break at 10 o'clock in the morning for their morning school break. It probably takes me 2 to 3 days to create the same content with much more advanced computing devices. What does that tell you? It's not about the compute. Compute is a utility right now. They carry supercomputers in the palms of their hands. So it's not the access to the device. It's the way they're being disruptive, the way they're thinking across all ages. Today's students look at the information superhighway as a small back alley road. They're flying down the internet highway, grabbing information from all sorts of social media, from Wikipedia, from their school publications, and so on and so forth. They can digest all of that and they can put it in proper presentations in much faster rates than we as adults can. We as adults that grew up in the 80s or 90s can today. So they're disrupting the system. If our tools at school do not evolve to keep up with that learning, with that speed, we're going to render the education system boring, irrelevant, unchallenging. That means they will resort to other methods to grab that knowledge, to seek the pleasures of knowledge. So hence we have to start disrupting the system today. But this is a great opportunity because I look at it as this is our steam engine moment in the education industry. What steam engine did, what locomotives did as the second industrial revolution to industries, we're on the cusp of that moment in education today. So if we seize it, if we build the proper infrastructure, if we can handle the complexities and manage those complexities, embrace that change, we can help them disrupt for the better. The complexities, this infrastructure, if you look at it in terms of devices, and if you look at it in terms of content, and if you look at it in terms of internet, and if you look at it piecemeal, it's highly complex. So this complexity needs to be served in a bundled manner as a service rather than having a multitude of devices and laptops and tablets at the hands of students or teachers. So the different interfaces we have in our classrooms today, and we said technology is complex. You have the Wi-Fi, the immersive Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, again, is no longer just for the classroom. They have Wi-Fi in their break rooms, in the cafeterias, in the playgrounds. The interactive smart boards, the teachers' laptops, the students, the software, the application, all of that has to be bundled and delivered as a service. This is no longer about more devices. And this is from experience. We launched something similar here in Oman, and it turned out the more technology you put in disrupting the experience or improving the experience, the more damaging this disruption is. Because as soon as the Wi-Fi goes down, or as soon as that device is not restarting, or as soon as the student does not have access to their Google Docs online, that experience, instead of being improved for the better, it's disrupted for the worse. So we have to think of e-education, smart digital educations, beyond laptops and beyond portals. We have to think of bundles. We have to be delivering a digital experience and not just devices, not just networks and internet or content. In the case of the experience that we've had right here in Oman, actually there was an education as a service product that was introduced recently to private schools with the intention to roll this into public schools. This is meant for the K-12 education. So from the kindergarten onwards to high school, this provides different configurations of devices, different configuration of applications, productivity applications like Word, like PowerPoint, different connectivity options, different content, the digital curriculum certified by the appropriate bodies and the ministries. All of this gets delivered to schools per student, served right over the air. So you as a parent, you as a student, no longer have to worry about how to procure that technology. It gets delivered in a seamless manner. So that from a student and classroom point of view, teachers obviously have a lot on their hands today. So if you jam more technologies in the classroom while the teachers have to be fully concentrated and focused on delivering not just hard sciences and core material such as math or languages, but they have to deliver and develop the artistic and innovative nature of our students today, right? They have to watch out for the hand-eye coordination. Who is plugged into the discussion and who's sitting in a corner absolved from all what's going on in that classroom, the spatial skills, the reasoning skills. So the divide becomes a lot bigger between teacher and student unless we're able to deliver technology as a service. If we look at some of the frameworks out there, we look at TPAC. TPAC talks about content, pedagogical development, try saying that 3 times in a row, pedagogical development, the process of delivering knowledge to students, right, and the technology part. They look at the different ways where technology can play a role. But in some researches, technology is actually more disrupting in the pedagogical process and interface as well as the content deliverable. It's a lot more invasive there, and it could impact the experience a lot better than just focusing on teaching our students on IT sciences and how to configure a machine or a laptop with a static IP address like my kid at home. The pedagogical experience, for example, when we start to deploy artificial intelligence and big data, we can monitor for how students are absorbing the knowledge, how they're processing the knowledge, how to customize the delivery of that knowledge to their minds, depending on where their capabilities and their skills and their interests are. I think we all agree that we don't need all students to become engineers or doctors or artists or linguists or historians, right? But how do we manage the differences? How do we build on top of these differences for a better society? It's by customizing the learning and the education experience, utilizing all the artificial intelligence and big data technologies so we can deliver customized content and customized experiences right into the brains and minds of our students. So learning today is always on. You're mobile, you're in transit, you're in the car, kids can still be reviewing material. They can still be reviewing a presentation that they have to do at school today. It's always on. After 6 o'clock, it's always on. When the first thing they do when they wake up, they're engaging, they can be checking with their friends. It's fun, it's interactive. It's no longer about static books and content that they only get access to from the libraries. It's interactive, they can update their content, and they can get feedback from their peers or from their educators. It's social. My kids today spend half the time preparing for assignments by talking to their peers and their student friends over applications, including Snapchat. I used to think Snapchat is just entertainment and it's just filters and pictures. Turns out that's how they chat. Kids, especially teenagers right now, they don't use WhatsApp, they don't use Facebook, they use Snapchat to communicate to one another and discuss the homework that's due in a week's time. And they would be uploading interactive, fun material, and they would get a lot more meaningful feedback from one another. It's immersive. We're talking about 360-degree senses acting. It's not just about reading. They hear, and with the help of AR and VR glasses, they're able to visualize content a lot more than we could back when we were in school. And it's ferocious. Data, again, is not single-sourced anymore. It's crowdsourced, and it hits them from so many input sources. It comes to them from books, from online publications, from their peers, from the educators, through the mobile applications. It comes to them from sensors. When we start talking about Internet of Things, which means sensors talking to sensors or sensors uploading data to humans, they got access to that. They have to deal with all that data, that big data, that structured and unstructured data. They have to make sense of it, and they have to process that data into information and onwards to knowledge and wisdom. This is learning today. It's not just about books and reading between the lines. Back to that complexity. How do we handle all that complexity? How do we make sure our kids and our educators are utilizing the best of fourth industrial revolution technologies to their advantage? How do we make sure that they're being disrupted for the better? It's by starting with the vision. Not every student, not every classroom, not every city has the same vision for its population. So we start with a vision, then there's the technology components, and then all of that has to be delivered to that school, to that student, as a simple service, away from the devices, away from the internet connectivity and the content. Education as a service. We mentioned earlier, it all has to be bundled, so there are no complexities of devices. We discussed quickly the different touch points inside of a classroom, and how all of that has to come together in one single bundle. It's not just K-12 education, but I'll give you an example right here at home, higher education. Speaking of higher grounds and higher education, colleges. Many countries around the world have RENs, research and education networks. Right here in Oman, we're very proud with our partnership with the Research Council. We launched almost 3 years back what's known as OMRAN, Oman Research and Education Network. And it's exactly that. It's a simplified set of technologies to make sure academicians, educators, students, researchers across all of our colleges and universities, they get access to that rich set of technology seamlessly. Today we're talking about over 41 colleges and universities right here in Oman connected through high-speed networking backbones, not only to one another so they can communicate and collaborate, but they're also connected to Géant in France, they're connected to Internet 2 in New York, they're connected to our data centers where we have access to a lot of cloud technologies so they could use that cloud technology at their fingertips. They got access to rich data and content published by the likes of Pearson and virtual science libraries. And then they have applications that bring together this education community. So a student in Ibri can talk to a student in Salalah over a paper that they're working on together. They can collaborate, and the teachers or the professors can monitor the progress of that research without being physically present near any one of them. So this collaboration, these platforms are all available. This is disruption for higher education. And this is a reality right here in Oman today. In the end, and I'll start to wrap up, what we do when it comes to education is extremely sensitive because it touches the heart and soul of our communities. So the community has to be your true north, whether it's devices, whether it's technology, whether it's fourth industrial revolution, whether it's AR and VR and artificial intelligence. It touches our students, and these are the bright futures that we have in our societies. One of the examples here is Darb al-Salama, something that we launched with one of the esteemed ministries last year. You could deploy technologies today to make sure the well-being of your kid, of the students, is managed properly, not just only inside of the classroom, but in transit between the home and the classroom. So when they leave in the morning to the time they come back, you're aware of their safe transit, you can track their safe transit, you can make sure they're healthy. And now with the advent of fourth industrial revolution, technologies such as Internet of Things, you can start to actually monitor their heartbeats, their conditions, their whereabouts, their GPS. This is how IR, the Industrial Revolution, not only helps our kids learn more, but it keeps them healthy even when they're not in the classroom. So the winds are changing, the winds are blowing. Right now, if they think it, they can create it, and they can just do it. Right? From drones, sensing and scanning, to artificial intelligence, to customize the presentations, to 3D printing, they can actually physically materialize that presentation, to augmented reality to make things so much richer. So when the winds are blowing, disruption is in the air, I know our kids today are off to a great start because of the smart digital education that they're taking part in. Digital disruption is here. I encourage all of us to embrace it. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fadi Nasser, for giving the first intervention of this session after the introduction. Can I call now Dr. Hanan Khalifa, is the Director of Education, Transformation and Alliances of Cambridge Assessment, who will be our next speaker. And now we will change a little bit the system. We have the presentation, and a few minutes we keep for some kind of debate and questions and answers and clarifications and even to comments. Please, Dr. Hanan Khalifa, the floor is yours.
Thank you
very much.
Mario put me to shame because he spoke in Arabic first and I'm an Arabic speaker. So I'm going to start by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is my first time to be in Innovation MENA, my first time ever to be in Oman, and I'm really, really pleased for the invitation and to be among you distinguished guests and honorable academics. My talk today is about something that's quite deep, important to me, and I know it's important to you today. It's about empowering students. It's about aspirational education. Throughout the talk, I will be bringing in experience from Cambridge, and if you allow me, I would also like to bring in personal experience as well. Today, there are lots of global trends. Andreas Schleicher, OECD, brought this up a couple of years ago. But the ones that I would like to highlight here are 4 of them. Globalization. Globalization with the rise of the middle classes, especially in countries like China and India, and the move it's actually pressurizing us to go for better education, to provide better education for more people and more people. The rise of the middle class within countries is also showing inequalities as well. And with inequalities, this creates challenges and challenges about access to education. If you've noticed, all of the international aid donors are focusing on 2 key points. They're focusing on equity and access. And that's where most of aid money is going in. Digitalization. Now, His Excellency talked earlier about one of the 10 trends of digital transformation. With digitalization, we know there is, artificial intelligence, machine learning, which has really changed the face of the military field, of the medical field, and of the technological fields. The colleague before me, Fadi, was talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution, about the digital disruption. I want to talk about digital distraction. How many of us have kids who sit next to them, or their kids sitting next to them, just playing on their mobiles? and not listening to you. When you are at dinner, we all know that when you look at your mobiles, you have another guest, an unwanted and uninvited guest, yeah? So what do we do? What do we do with this digital distraction? It's about the smart adoption of technology. What is it that we want to adopt or not? There's a writer called James Williams. I don't know if you know of him or not, but he wrote about digital distraction and our freedom in an attention span. It's really an excellent book, and I would recommend it to you to read it. And it starts with Alexander the Great meeting the controversial Greek philosopher Diogenes. Did I say that right? Diogenes, yeah? Thank you, I'm talking to a Greek colleague here. Alexander went to him and said, what would you like to have? I'm Alexander the Great, tell me, and I will give it to you. Just click your fingers, and I'll give it to you. Diogenes looked up at him and said, move away. You're standing in my light. I'm enjoying my sun. Sun as in S-O-N, yeah? Did not want to get distracted. Can we honestly say that to the digital world around us? What do we need to do? I do not have an answer. I'm not claiming that I have an answer, but just for you to think about it. The third thing, we have an aging population with higher life expectancy, with the disappearance of the concept of job for life, which my mother had and my dad had. The older labor workforce came to realization that they need to retrain and to be upskilled. But what did we do as educationalists? Where are we with our lifelong learning? And it's not just about lifelong learning, it's also about life-wide learning that we need to look into. Migration. International migration is on the rise. In the last 20 years, there has been at least 70% increase in international migration. With international migration, it brings in opportunities. We have brain gain, but also in some countries, there are brain drain. With international migration, one of the worst nightmares for teachers inside the classroom is about social heterogeneity. It's about disparity as well, about mental health and well-being. Have we trained our teachers in order to be able to address these issues? I don't know if we have or not. Bearing that in mind and looking also at what employers have been telling us, and it has been ongoing for quite a while, that employers are saying, okay, you guys, you educationalists, higher education, K-12 sector, you're producing students that I cannot really use at work. What do we do then? I'm going to stop talking here, and I would like to draw your attention to the screen for the next 1 minute. Thank you. What these two slides showed us is one thing, like HR managers around the world are saying, we need people who are resilient. I know that for certain because where I work, we have gone through 4 different restructures, organization restructure in the last 4 years, and we needed to survive. We need to show resilience. And right now, I'm actually saying that change is the new norm. Nothing really remains static. Mario talked about entrepreneurship, and I want to bring in a personal experience of mine. 2 years ago, my son was about to leave school and go to university. And in order to get good grades, he said, Mommy, I'm going to concentrate on my core subjects, economics and etc. I also want to do an extended project. And I said, great, what kind of research you're going to do? And what kind of, like what you're going to do? Are you going to write a novel? Are you going to do research? And he said, no, Mommy, I'm going to, get this, I'm going to create a football team under 18. I wore the parent hat, and I was so worried that this will take him time. I'm so worried that because he was thinking outside the box, that the tutor will mark him down. But then I said, Hanan, let it go. Because what he will show, what it will show that he has entrepreneurship. It's a project-based learning. It would show negotiation skills, persuasion skills, because he has to do fundraising. He has to get a team together. He has to go and learn how to drive. He has to get his license, hire a car, put the team together, negotiate for having a manager, go and interview a manager. And this is coming from an 18-year-old boy. And I thought this is a great opportunity. And I was really, really proud. But my first instinct as a parent, really, do you want to do that? It should be an essay. Yeah. So I'm talking to you as parents, and I'm talking to you so that you can talk to other parents who had that split second of doubting their own kids. Also, usually in schools, when the school introduced topics like leadership or innovation or creativity, the first thing that parents would ask is about the measurement. How are you going to measure creativity? How are you going to measure leadership? As an assessment specialist who truly believe, and I know there are other assessment specialists here as well, who truly believe that everything can be measured. So once you define what the leadership is, once you have indicators, or at least behavioral indicators and exemplars of what innovation and creativity is, it can be measured, and it can have a grade, and it can add to that student's grade. On this slide, what we're talking about, I mean, the picture is really good for the region, don't you think? It's quite a good one. But I wanted to talk about what's happening in the region in terms of internationalization. Whether it's the flood of new branches opening up, campuses opening up, and are we ready for it in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of having tutors, in terms of having the right curriculum, or the various ways of internationalization, whether it is validating a program, a 2-2 program, or a 2-1 program. And by saying ready, it's also educating the parents, educating the students, and talking to our academics that maybe they also need to be retrained. The other thing that I wanted to point out is about the salary gap. Yes, English is the lingua franca, but it won't be there for long. Where the world is moving now is really moving towards being a multilingual and not bilingual. So learning more than one language, the European Union, when it came together, one of its first mandate was 2+1. So you've got your mother tongue, but plus 2 other languages. Something for us to think about when we look into our curriculum. Now, looking into the future, we know that our society needs educated citizens. We know that our employers want employable individuals. And we know that we are moving towards having more and more digital citizens. So, to me, the future is not somewhere which is distant. The future is here, is now, and it's something that we need to do. We need to do something about it. And the way that we do that is that we use our collective knowledge to anticipate and to act on our anticipation. One of the possible solutions, and here I'm going to draw on on a Cambridge experience in sub-Saharan Africa, various countries there. We started talking to them about smart choices in terms of curriculum, balancing a number of important outcomes so that at the end we have an impactful individual. Of course, the curriculum would have, core subjects, but it's about the rigor in those core subjects. It's about the theoretical underpinning of those subjects, bringing it to the forefront. Enabling subjects to strengthen areas such as languages and soft skills, again, referring back to Mario about entrepreneurship, for example, to be included in there. And let's not forget the personal attributes and qualities. For that, we also need to have better linkages between the academic and the non-academic environment. His Excellency talked about strategic partnerships between the school and the industry. This is what we would be talking about here. Broadening expectations against curricular and non-curricular activities to foster values and behaviors, encouraging activities like volunteering would be quite important. But in order to do that, we need to have a supporting culture. And by supporting culture, I also mean changing the mindset. So having huge or very influencing parental campaigns so that the parents could also help the school in achieving this. So what are the policy implications there? One thing, you must have heard about curriculum overload. So being actually brave enough to resist curriculum overload, to resist having unnecessary and unhelpful content, to focus on what is relevant in the learners' lives. In order to achieve clarity in terms of curriculum, we need to look into deploying highly skilled technical professionals who are agile and flexible, who is also able to benefit from interdisciplinary perspectives. We know that with Francis Watts and Frank Kirk, where they put together physics and biology and they discovered the molecular in the DNA. So let's bring this up. Let's see how biology and physics work better together. And I know that some curriculum does this. Coherent reforms. We usually tend to say, right, I have this little problem in this aspect of education, and I'm going to fix that problem. But fixing that problem would have a domino effect. So thinking about the domino effect from the beginning, thinking about when you talk about a curriculum reform, you also need to look into the assessment reform, into the pedagogical reform, and not just about one area, because we will be missing out on the rest, and we will be then going through the domino effect as well. Having a theory of change is very important if you're looking at a long-term outcome. So introducing in your initiatives a theory of change from the very beginning is extremely important. And we've talked about the supporting culture. Thank you, Mario. I'll go quickly on that. Sorry. Smart adoption of technology. I've talked about digital distraction. So when we adopt the technology, maybe I'm going against what most people would be saying here, but I'm thinking that bring the technology that the students will be using at home so that what's happening inside the classroom also is very much similar to home. The classroom is not ossified or demotivating. What is super important here is that teachers and parents become digitally savvy. So that, in our work in Southeast Asia Pacific and in Central America, we worked with teachers on remote mentoring platforms. And what we have learned that the teachers are very comfortable to work on these initiatives if they know about it, if it is a secure environment. I would like also to bring up here what Mike Trocano said from the World Bank, that the best technology for teachers is what they already have and are used to. Policy implications, train and train and train the teachers. Do not assume that if you're giving them a tablet or the smartboard that they can use it. We know that, we have learned that lesson. Let's not do that again. If you're introducing a new initiative or new tablets or new digital product inside the school, establish a baseline and base your decisions on evidence. Be infrastructure ready, and this requires a cross-governmental collaboration with telecommunication, with Ministry of Electricity, Ministry of Education. I'm not going to talk about security because I think Fadi talked about that, and I do not actually have also a solution for it. Smart pedagogy. What I wanted to show here is that intertwining learning and assessment rather than seeing them as a dichotomy. And I'm going to read out a definition by Booth, which I think was one of the best ones. Learning-oriented assessment is about learning and progression, just as it is about grading. It's about standardization, but it's also about personalization. Every act of assessment we devise or have a role in implementing has more than one purpose. If we do not pay attention to these multiple purposes, we are in danger of inadvertently sabotaging one or more of these. What I want to show here is how can we apply learning-oriented assessment in languages, in subjects like mathematics, or if we are using a standard-based curriculum. If you look at the left-hand side, if I can't do that, and if you think, and I'm going to use language here, language is divided into 6 different levels. These levels provide us with the learning objectives. The learning objectives gives us the course, and from the course we have a task related to the learning objectives. Then we will have the learner exemplify or demonstrate a language activity with the teacher observing, and the teacher interpreting whether the learner are doing it right or need further feedback. They do an informal record. The teacher makes a decision of what to do about that task. Do they repeat the task? Do they modify the learning objectives? It all comes from the feedback that they give to the student. And sometimes they can also have a structured record of achievement. And the record of achievement go back to the course and also an interpretation of it to the other step of that step curriculum. And some governments would also wish to do an external exam if they want to see alignment to international standards, but not as a necessity. The move now is towards the localization of assessment rather than the internationalization of it. Policy implications: eliminate the divide between learning and assessment. Be also very clear on the uses of assessment and feedback. Enable personalized learning. And I cannot really stress the importance of this, because when you go to a doctor, the doctor does not just prescribe the same medicine as he described to the other patient. He will give the other patient a different type of medicine. So are we giving our kids the same medicine? Personalized learning is really, really very important. Our 4 key takeaways from here: coherent reforms with theory of change, evidence-based for decision-making, learning-oriented assessment, intertwining them both rather than seeing them as a dichotomy. Sustainability is also key. When we have a new initiative, we really need to think from the very beginning about sustainability and not towards the end. And I'm going to end up on an image. And I want you to tell me, what are you seeing in this image? Right. I think, or at least what I'm seeing is 2 women by a river or a lake washing dishes or washing clothes. One of them is smiling. The other one is listening to someone else. Now, this has been an aid project in one of the countries, and the project was $35 million. The project was about introducing clean water. And when the project came about, they said, right, okay, we need, these are illiterate women, illiterate households. We need to give them literacy training. We need to make them understand the pros and cons of clean water and dirty water. We need to go in and educate their kids and the husbands and the whole family. And they've done that. They spent $35 million on that. 2 years later, evaluators came in looking at the return on investment to see what was happening. And they had this picture. And why do you think the women still are using dirty water? Because at the very beginning, the people who set the project did not think of sustainability, did not think about the context and the culture. For these women, it's their get out of house card. It is their social activity. It's where their kids meet other kids. It is their creche. Had we provided that from the very beginning, we would have had a very good return on investment, and these women would be using clean water and not dirty water. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Dr. Hanan, for the great presentation. We have now a few minutes for any question or comments.
And just in case I cannot answer them, I have colleagues from Cambridge here who can.
I'm sure you will. There is, well, I know it's always difficult to make the first question, but I have a question. I enjoy very much the link between assessment and the new skills. What is your view in terms of assessment, the entrepreneurship skills, which is a very multi-skill system?
Yes, I mean, if you look at entrepreneurship, what you have, if you break it down, Mario, you've got negotiation skills, and these can be measured. You got project management skills, organizational skills, and these can be measured. The minute that you say, okay, what do we mean? Let's define entrepreneurship, and you look at these criteria. Then you look at how can we measure each of these. So you've got the definition first, you've got your indicators, you've got your exemplars.
Thank you. Okay, now please, there is a question. It can be a comment, because sometimes people want to make a comment and they spend lots of time to transform the comment in a question, but comments are also possible.
Sure.
Thank you. Please. Oh, from Lebanon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Shukran, Mario. Dr. Hanan, my question is the following. What happened to your son with his project?
Fadi, thank you so much. He actually got an A-star on the project, and it was that A-star that got him in one of the prestigious universities in the UK. It was a differentiating factor, yeah. And the team is still ongoing. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dominic Savage from the Education World Forum. Dr. Hanan, you've explained the importance of policy decisions at a national level which are enabling. But I'm very interested then in thinking about that last photograph and the fact that in the end, something has to happen locally. And in the context of education, that's something has to happen in every individual school. Can I ask you just to comment on the ways in which one enables those who are leading individual schools to follow innovation and also to be able to share the ideas of what can actually work locally and make a difference at that local level?
Thank you, Dominic. I mean, communities of practice would be of use here. So if school leaders have their own community or set their own community, or maybe the ministry can facilitate that. So a forum for school leadership in the UK, we have one of those, and I know from school principals that they found that very useful. An annual conference for school leadership to get together to share experiences, even forums like, okay, digital, let's use WhatsApp. I would do that. I don't know if colleagues from Cambridge who's more into schools would be able to add any comments? Or you guys, okay.
Another?
There's one there, Karen.
Okay, sorry, I'll repeat. Karen Kester, also from Cambridge, just supporting Hanan in answering Dominic's question. So it's certainly getting things right with the school leaders. We've definitely seen instances where there might be programs that look at training the teachers and looking at what the teachers are doing in the schools, but if you don't also address it at the school leadership level, you won't have the support through the school network to make the change that you want at that local level. And as I say, some of the things that Hanan has suggested about how you can do that with school leaders are really important, but just getting that level in there, the school leaders, the regions, as well as the teachers.
And just to add as well, thanks, Karen. Dominic, it's also about context matters and culture matters. So every school has its own context, has its own set of challenges, and the culture in that school is very, very important to be taken into account as well. Something that we tend to forget about subconsciously. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Jihad Reddy from the Ministry of Education in Palestine. Actually, the question to you, Franco, and colleague Dr. Hanan, about real examples of integrating technology in education and the assessment of that on the achievement of the students. You know, the debate is always that whether introducing new technologies and new learning management systems that could improve the output or the achievement of the students in terms of acquiring multi-skills, etc., as you highlighted, and focusing on, critical thinking and even looking into the SDGs. So if there are any experiments of real examples of implementing technology in education and reflecting, the learning outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerd. If you allow me, I'm going to talk about Cambridge experience and assessment. So we offer what is called adaptive testing or adaptive assessment, where you have an algorithm that you key into the computer. Students come in, they do an online exam, and the exam would go up and down according to their levels, and that's a very quick and reliable measure of the level that they are at any given moment in time. We've also introduced, and other assessment bodies have done that as well, chatbots, for example, so that's where you're integrating technology into assessment, and online, having online tutors as well. The example that I've given about remote mentoring of teachers, so that was a blended learning, and I need to say that was Southeast Asia Pacific and Central Americas. Face-to-face cultures, who teachers did not really want to talk online, wanted to have the mentoring face-to-face. So there has been a cultural shift and a change in the mindset to get them to do that. And once they have seen it working with their other colleagues, once actually the female said, oh, I can do that when I put the kids to bed. I don't have to be at a certain time inside the classroom. They could see how useful it was for them to do that.
Thank you. And with this, we have to close. But I think this presentation, which I thank you very much, is an introduction for time we have during the coming days.
Yes.
And we can exchange views all over. And we continue our debate. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
It was
thank
great
you,
to have you here.
Shukran
jazilan. Okay, thank you. Now I would like to call Dr. Patrick Brazier, who is the CEO of Education Development Trust, and go to speak about how schools need to prepare students for unpredictable future. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, and after I will come back for the questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today in Oman. I'm going to talk about how schools need to prepare students for an unpredictable future. But before that, let me just say a few words about Education Development Trust. We work on education reform projects all around the world, and we have a particular focus on what the evidence says. Evidence-led expertise in 3 core areas of work: reforming education systems, working on school improvement, and what I'm going to talk about a little bit today about the importance of careers and employability. And we have a long-standing commitment to working here in this region. We've been working here for more than 30 years, and we have a partner here with us working together in Oman, and we've been working here for a long time on education reform. One of the other things that we do as an organization is we undertake research, and we have a particular focus on what we call bright spots.
where is there really interesting examples of where education reform has actually worked? Where has it made a difference on the ground? We talk to the people involved and we publish that research, and that is available to everybody on our website. So if you look at our website, you can see some of our latest reports that describe really good practice around the world and how change has actually happened. Now, I want to draw today on the whole range of our experience and ask the question, how can schools best prepare students for an unpredictable future? And we've heard today that the future is unpredictable, and therefore it's really important that at the starting point at schools that we do the most effective things that we can to make sure our students are prepared for that unpredictable future. And it's really important that schools have a multifaceted response. There's not a single answer to this. So schools, and picking up exactly on what Hanan was saying earlier, a focus on core academic outcomes, plus a broad curriculum, plus the development of character and life skills. But even that is not enough. You also have to have a systematic approach to work and careers themes within the curriculum. You have to prepare students for the future world of work. And for older children, you have to have specialist careers guidance to make sure that students really understand the needs of the world's work and are prepared for it. We absolutely know for a fact that student life chances and their future earnings are dependent on the core foundations of literacy, numeracy, and scientific understanding. If you don't have that, then everything that we've been talking about, access to the digital world, entrepreneurship, different forms of learning, will not happen. Until children have that fundamental basis in literacy, numeracy, and scientific understanding, that is the platform that everything else is built on. And these foundations are a precondition for an active and agile and effective workforce. And you have to have really good teaching. You have to be engaging with your teaching. You have to have a really positive curriculum in order to develop that. And whilst that is essential, these days it's not nearly enough. So 21st century jobs also require competencies such as creativity and teamwork, exactly as Hanan was saying, but also key character qualities such as resilience and initiative. And the core academics only take you so far these days. Recently, the World Economic Forum published a report on this, analysing the different skill sets needed for the 21st century. As I said, you need those foundational literacies. You need literacy, numeracy, scientific understanding. You have to understand the basics of ICT. You need financial literacy and cultural and civic literacy and understanding. That's the basis, that's the foundations that you can build on. But you also need children to develop competencies, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, all the core competencies that the workplace needs now. But even that is not enough. You need to build character. You need to develop curiosity. You need to develop initiative in children, persistence, adaptability, all the things that our previous speakers have been talking about in order to achieve that exciting digital future, in order to create new opportunities, new places to work. You need to have those core characteristics, and they need to be built into the learning of children at schools. And the good news is that we know that these characteristics can actually be taught. Outstanding schools have always recognized this, that academic excellence is important, but it's not enough. And we now need to make sure that that knowledge is expanded throughout our education systems to teach children to be resilient, to develop the skills such as teamwork and leadership necessary for the future, that uncertain future. And there are multiple benefits from this. It's not just about the child, it's also about the society that the child then comes into adulthood into, and the positive benefits to the society of children being taught these core and fundamental skills for the 21st century. It makes a huge difference to their academic achievement, but it also makes a huge positive impact on their life skills and their well-being. And that makes a positive impact into the society that they're going into. And the evidence is compelling. To be effective as future workers, students need those core skills, a rich curriculum, and a developed character. But that is also not enough, because in the future, children also need to be able to make smart, ambitious, and realistic choices about the careers that they want to go into. And that's really the core of what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm going to show you something, an interesting experiment. In 2016, a small experiment took place in a primary school class, 5 to 7-year-olds in England. And the children were asked to draw a picture of a firefighter, a surgeon, and a pilot. And this is just a recording of what happened.
People doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is a firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter looks like.
We're doing the same. What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary. Firefighter Star. Firefighter Simon. He's big and strong. He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Next, we're going to draw a surgeon.
Have you thought of a name for your surgeon? Jim Bob. Jim Bob. He's a brain surgeon. I think he would wear a stethoscope. He gives you medicine. That's his ambulance.
Okay, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane. He rescues people. He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
Okay, now who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah! They're dressed up.
My name's Tamsin and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy, I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade. So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's putting it on?
I'm trying my stethoscope.
We put this in here. There you go. Now you're a proper fighter pilot.
So into your ears. Can you hear that? Yeah. It's really good. It's much better, yeah, it's much better than my kids' one.
So I thought it would be nice to introduce some real children into the discussion, but this absolutely illustrates a key challenge that schools face. Of those children in an English primary school, 61 of them drew pictures of men, and only 5 drew pictures of women. But half the class were girls. And of those girls, only 1 of them chose to show a firefighter as a woman. So even at the age of 7, the career choices of being closed down for children. And it's so important that schools absolutely make sure that, for one thing, schools really demonstrate that women can do many jobs, if not every job, traditionally associated with men, and to generate ambition. It's really important that schools generate ambition and aspiration for talented students, whatever their background. So the importance of primary years. Young children in primary education need to find out about the world of work. They need to have a curriculum that emphasizes the vast range of possibilities that are open to them, and a curriculum that challenges the stereotypes and helps to keep their options open for as long as possible. So we're not closing down in the early years the aspirations, the opportunities that we are presenting to children about what their future career might actually be. And then in secondary schools, it's so important that we provide a really comprehensive careers curriculum. When students are aged between 13 and 18, they are making life-changing choices. They're making choices about what their future career is going to be, and they need to be supported in making those choices in the most effective way. Schools have a responsibility to make sure that the choices children make are educated choices and giving them the opportunity to find out about the world of work and giving them the opportunity to make sure they are studying the right things, developing the right characteristics, really developing themselves for their future. It's so important that subject teachers explain about subject-related careers. And for STEM teachers, this is a particular requirement. They have a responsibility to promote careers in science and scientific development. Students also need access to information about different careers, different occupations, and there's a huge amount of information out there. There's technology-enabled information that can really give detailed information about what the opportunities are, important labour market information for children to understand what the opportunities are and develop their own learning and thinking for that. This particular example is a school intranet that gives students detailed careers guidance, including that critical up-to-date labour market information. It's so important that representatives of different professions visit schools. And again, in that short video, we saw the power, how those children's faces were lit up by seeing female fighter pilots. As I was saying, the core thing is that we absolutely introduce the opportunities in the world of work and make that a priority for developing engagement, particularly in secondary schools. And I'm going to finish on a particular example of a school in London. It is a state school, and it is in one of the most deprived parts of London. And the evidence of that is that more than 50% of the children at this school receive free school lunches. So that's a measure of the deprivation in that particular area of London. But that particular school has a huge ambition for all of its students. And that ambition is that they really do engage really effectively in the world of work. They make sure that students from this particular school go and visit universities. They make sure that the teachers talk about all the opportunities that there are for careers in their areas. They make sure that representatives from the professions come and visit that school so they can have one-to-one productive conversations with the students about, do they want to be an engineer? Do they want to be a surgeon? Do they want to get into IT? How is that going to work for them as individuals? And really making a focus on active and positive engagement with the students on the opportunities for work. And the outcome of this, as I said, in one of the genuinely most deprived parts of London with students who are from deprived backgrounds, is that, but this is Brampton Manor School in the UK, in London. And in January 2019, as a result of all the work that this school has done, and indeed to the astonishment of the world, 41 students from that school won places at Oxford or Cambridge. This was more than any other school in England except for Eton. So it just demonstrates the three core messages that I want to get across from my presentation. Firstly, the foundations are really important. And all the talk we've had about that, the exciting digital opportunities ahead for children, they cannot access that unless they have the foundations of literacy, of numeracy, and of scientific and IT understanding. So every school must make sure that their children really excel at those foundations. The foundations are not enough. Children also need to have the life skills. They need to develop the team-working skills, the collaborative skills, an ability to withstand challenges and problems. And the good news is that those skills can be taught, and effective schools do that. But then that is not enough either. The schools also need to introduce children to the world of work, and they must not close down the ambitions or aspirations of children. In fact, they must do the opposite. They must open up the opportunities for every single child at school so that they can deliver their personal ambitions of the careers that they want to work with. And if we get that right, and Brampton Manor School in London has done this, then the opportunities are endless. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Patrick, for the presentation. I think you are now open for some kind of short discussion.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, then please, any comments or questions? We have a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Very interesting presentation. I've got a comment and a question, if you don't mind. The comment is related to stereotypes and assumptions. I'm really delighted to say that since I've been in Oman, I've been amazed at how the gender assumption or stereotype around girls going into STEM subjects is not the case. We've definitely bucked the trend where we are at Muscat University because we have a chemical engineering undergraduate program and probably 95% of the students are female. So it's excellent to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you. The second is the question. Increasingly, I've become very, very interested in this idea of ethics of education. I think it's excellent that we are, and that's our role as academics and as educators, to inspire students and give them every opportunity to do well. However, inspiring them and giving them expectations is all good, but these students live within a wider ecosystem, and the realities of the culture and the community in which they are operating is sometimes prohibitive, and you can create a lot of political, and I don't mean in that sense, but you can create a lot of anxieties and problems for some students, possibly more girls than boys, but more broadly, if you give them maybe false hopes about what they can do. And I'm using this term very loosely, but if you take somebody out of a particular region, whether it's underdeprived or whether it's community or religious, and you know, and you give them expectations that they can do anything, but the reality is they can't. And I'm just wondering what your views and if there's any evidence of case studies of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's a really important question, and two or three comments. Firstly, I'm absolutely not suggesting that we should tell students they can do anything. I think actually that's that can do exactly as you said. It can generate false hopes and expectations. And good teachers and good schools will absolutely understand that. And indeed, that is part of the importance of really good careers advice and guidance, because it is actually about working with individuals in the schools and genuinely helping them to understand what their individual options are for their future careers and not saying you can do absolutely anything. However, I think the counter to that is, and I think it is genuinely a bigger problem, is that far too often we are closing down opportunities and not opening them up. And I think the Brampton Manor story is a great example of that, because it's a school in a difficult, deprived area, but the school has absolutely set its aspirations high, and I think it is so important that schools understand and work for every single child. They have to have that level of aspiration for every single child and give them the opportunities. Of course, different children will have different abilities, different aspirations, and they therefore need to be challenged and channeled in the right direction. And it's that balance that is absolutely right. But if you open up the opportunities, then children will actually achieve to their greatest ability. If you don't open those opportunities, then the children will not achieve. And that has a very serious impact on them as individuals and on their communities.
Okay. Second question, the next table, please. Can you help with the microphone, please?
Layla Al-Hadrami, Information Technology Authority from Oman. Thanks, Patrick, for the inspiring presentation. And when it comes to the question, do we have to prepare the students or all the people who are involved in the academic curriculum? Because what happened, what I see, for example, all the students are ready. But are the teachers, are the ones who are designing the curriculum ready for the future? So one of the questions that we really need to discuss it today with all, even the decision makers. Because, for example, more than 10 years ago, the e-learning started, and we started about the blended learning. And we are still talking about the government innovation now, about the innovation in technology. But again, are all the people, the stakeholders, in creating the curriculum ready for the future? So do you have some best practices to discuss? How can we involve everyone to be prepared? Because I'm sure that all the children nowadays are ready.
Now, again, a really important question. I mean, the evidence on this is actually really, really clear. The most important part of the education system is the teachers, and the second most important is school leadership. And if you get those two aspects of a school system right, then essentially the system will work. And therefore, pre-service training for teachers and ongoing, regular, highly effective in-service training for teachers, plus a really important element of accountability. You have to measure the performance of teachers as well, and there has to be accountability for that level of a performance, but really importantly, matched with really good support. So there's ongoing in-service education for the teachers as well. You have to have that system in place, and you have to have really good leadership in schools in place. And that's a system issue. And again, you know, looking at the fundamentals of developing the curriculum around literacy and numeracy, the other absolute fundamental is to make sure that you get your teacher training right, your in-service support for teachers right, and your school leadership right across the system, and not just relying on, you know, individual inspiring teachers. You need to bring the base, the quality up across the system.
السلام عليكم. دكتورة أسماء الفضالة من مؤسسة قطر, the World Innovation Summit for Education. Thank you for your presentation, and my comments is in fact related to the last three keynotes. I agree with you about the role of teachers and school leaders in implementing any reform, any new ideas. But I would argue that we need to consider their role differently as change agents, as designers for learning, and not only providing training for them. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I absolutely agree with that. You can't simply train a teacher and then leave them for the next 30 years. You have to provide that ongoing support for their development as well.
This is Suad Al-Fouri from the Ministry of Education. My comment is also would tackle the three presentations, the speakers. Raised an important issue, which is preparing students for the unpredictable future. My comment is about the children with special needs, disabilities, and specific learning disabilities. For example, in Oman, we do provide a program for support children with specific learning difficulties, and I believe that it should continue to higher education, beyond school education as well. So I would like, and for Dr. Hanan Khalifa's presentation also, for me it raised the issue of emotional intelligence of children. So I would really like to hear your input, please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, that's a big area, but a really important one. So again, I absolutely agree with you, and I think just a couple of comments on that. Firstly, as I said, it is essential that we have high aspirations for every single one of our children at school. And therefore, we're not just focusing on the talented or the academic achievers, and we absolutely understand the issues and challenges that a whole range of children will have at school and adapt and develop for that. So I absolutely agree with you. That is a really important and critical element for any school system to ensure that we are supporting all children of all learning abilities.
Thank you, Patrick, for the enlightening presentations. You touched upon comprehensive curriculum, and as teachers usually worried about what to include in the school curriculum. Shall we emphasize more of subject matter, technological skills, career skills, life skills, and preparing students for unpredictable future? Do you think students might feel overwhelmed with the amount of information that is and requirements that are asked for or asked from? And are you aware of any studies that are focusing on what to include, whether in general education or higher education, what sort of skills? Because there is always afraid of balancing between curriculum or core subject skills and soft skills.
Yeah, no, again, a really good question. And of course, Hanan herself mentioned the importance of not having an overwhelming curriculum and looking at the opportunities to teach different subjects in different ways and combine things precisely along that point. But it is important. I mean, it really is important. And we will be failing our children if we do not make sure that the school does cover those three core areas. So the basic skills and the life skills and an opportunity to understand about the world of work. And good schools do this. And that's the point. And Brampton Manor is a great example of a state school in the UK that does this. So they've got that right. And again, as I said, our research at Education Development Trust is all about looking at where things work and then learning the lessons from that. And then using that, building an understanding of the core underpinning points of where schools and school systems actually work and are effective. And there is a lot of evidence around this, and a lot of it is available. And if you want to look at our website, there's a lot of information about how you make both schools and school systems really effective in covering the range of curriculum that you need to do, but taking the children with you as you do that, which is critical.
شكرا. استمتعت كثيرا بالعروض الثلاث نظرا لأهميتها وعمقها، وهي تطرح يعني إعادة نظر جذرية في مناهج التعليم، أخذا بعين الاعتبار يعني التحولات التي تعرفها المجتمعات وتعرفها التكنولوجيا وتكنولوجيا التواصل، وأيضا التحديات المستقبلية. العالم التحولات التي يصل إلى عالم. المؤتمر الأخير لمنظمة العمل الدولي، وكنت أحد حاضريه باعتباري وزير للشغل والإدماج المهني، يعني كان الموضوع الأساسي فيه وهو مستقبل العمل. فأنا أريد أن أدخل إلى الموضوع الذي طرحتموه من زاوية الإدماج المهني للشباب. فالآن نحن عندنا أوضاع في العالم العربي، أنا دعوني أتكلم عن المغرب. عندنا أوضاع، وهو أن الجامعات في مرحلة معينة توجهت إلى تكوينات يعني أكثر نظرية، ونظرية يعني استبعدت فيها إلى حد ما يسمى بتكوينات المهارات الحياتية والمهارات يعني السلوكية. الآن مناهجنا الآن عندنا رؤية استراتيجية جديدة، نسعى إلى الذهاب إلى هذا التحول، إلى انفتاح المدرسة على المستقبل، إلى مناهج تحقق كل المعاني التي تمت الإشارة إليها. ولكن يبقى دائما هناك مشكل، يبقى هناك مشكل بمعنى أن التحول لا يمكن أن يتم فجأة من نظام تقليدي، دعونا نقول من نظام تقليدي، إلى نظام يأخذ بعين الاعتبار التحولات التي يعرفها الجيل الحالي، يعني التحول في الأدوات الرقمية. وحتى هذا التحول في الأدوات الرقمية لا يمكن لكل المجتمع أن يسيره. حتى داخل المدرسة هناك اليوم مقاومة، لأن كل تحول جديد بالنظر إلى عقلية سابقة لا بد أن تكون هناك مقاومات. فالسؤال الذي يطرح عندنا بالنسبة لنا نحن الذين يطرح علينا كوزراء وكمسؤولين كيفية إيجاد يعني بريدج، واحد يعني جسر ما بين التكوين الذي تلقى هؤلاء وبين تأهيل هؤلاء للحياة العملية، أو ما نسميه نحن في السياسة الحكومية بين الملائمة بين تعليم وحاجية سوق الشغل. الآن في هذه بالنسبة لي هل هناك إمكانية بالنسبة للأجيال التي أخذت تكوينات قديمة والتي ليست لديها هذه المؤهلات، لم تنشأ مع العالم الرقمي كما نشأ أطفالنا اليوم، يعني هل هناك من سبيل لبناء يعني تكوينات قصيرة المدى تمكن من نقل هؤلاء الشباب الذين نحن عندنا آلاف الخريجين من الجامعات النظرية، يعني ناس يحملون الدكتوراه في الفيزياء النووية، يحملون الدكتوراه في الرياضيات، في العلوم الإنسانية إلى آخره، ولكن الطلب عليهم في سوق الشغل غير موجود. فكيف يمكن فعلا أن تكون الرقمنة، كيف أن تكون هذه المناهج ناجعة في هذا المجال؟ شكرا.
I'm sorry we have to continue after, but I give you the last word because we have one more speaker before the break. Then the last word, Dr. Patrick, we continue.
Yeah, well, again, thank you very much for that question, which is a big subject. I mean, I'm not a specialist in university education at all, but I do passionately believe it's important that you still have a very strong academic ambition for higher education, and that you do not turn universities just into to develop people for the world of work. My PhD is in the genetics of bacteria, so completely irrelevant to the job I'm doing now, but it gave me a fundamental understanding of writing and analysis and a whole range of areas, which is really important for the work I'm doing now. So I think we should not close down higher education and see it as something that is only focused on developing children for the world of work. But then I think the opposite to that is, and I hope the core themes of my presentation, that schools really do need to prepare children for every possibility. And so it is about those three core building blocks. It is making sure that children at school have those fundamental understandings of literacy and numeracy and scientific approach. Because actually, if they don't have that, then nothing else is possible. So that's is fundamental. But you also have to, for them and indeed for teachers, make sure that you're teaching open-mindedness, teamwork, opportunities not to resist change. So positive characteristics as well, because that is essential for the future, but it's also essential within school systems. So if we get that right and then give people realistic, positive understanding of what the opportunities for work are, if you get those 3 steps in place in schools with teacher training, then you will help to build a system. But we all know building really effective education systems is hard. It's not easy, and that's why people come to these conferences. And it is about learning from what works and adapting what works to your own particular environment. And again, we have lots of examples from our research of what actually works, where people have addressed these issues, made change, got positive outcomes, and it's really important that we all have that opportunity to learn from other people's good experience.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick, for your presentation and for bringing the room to such a dynamic of discussion.
I think a special thank you to Patrick as well for his dexterity overcoming a little trip there, which I gather is a coffee machine. So you know the coffee break's going to be okay, but it's been isolated, shouldn't happen again. And as Patrick shows you, a deep understanding and knowledge of bacteria can prepare you for anything in life. So, well, I'll hand
Okay,
over.
thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, it was a great discussion until now, but of course, let me just say one short comment. I think it's very important to get this experience, but I think the great challenge is how to implement them in the reality in each of the contexts of our countries, of our school, of our university. And for that, I think there is no solution. The solution is to prepare the people, but in the end of the day, the way how each of the person, of the teacher, is managing all this information and apply in their own reality is the big challenge and the solution for the question. This is another comment for discussion.